Hello, everybody. This is take 3 or 4 of this video now. I'm going to be talking about the IDW Zombot arc, kind of as a whole, mainly the wasted potential of it. But I went through like the last. We'll say it was like 3 more issues, maybe technically 4. I don't know if I count that last one as an like really a part of the arc. I'll get into that in a minute, but basically, like the last 3 issues are like they basically go. They get the Chaos Emeralds. They beat the Zeti. They have a like final stand on Angel Island, and it's this whole thing where it's like moments away before Sonic gets fully infected, and everybody's about to die when Silver and Sonic go super, and they redirect all of the metal virus off of Sonic's world. I don't know what they call Sonic's world in this continuity. I don't think they call it Mobius, but they redirect the metal virus off the planet and into the sun, where it will allegedly get destroyed. Allegedly, but. Yeah, that's about it. That's all there is to the arc. And then they have like one, like, so spoiler warning, Sonic allegedly dies. Not really. We know he didn't die. Hello, everybody. Editing Shooty here. Coming to you from the future into the past. Even though it's still going to be from the past, just not the same past from when I first recorded the video. But, I was looking at 2 pages from, I think it's issues 29 and 30. I'm not gonna bother correcting myself on that part. Basically, at the end of the last book in the Zombot arc, they have the shot with Silver after he crash lands, and they show him getting up. And then they repeat this same exact shot in the next comic. But it's completely redrawn from a completely different artist. It's not like we put like a flashback, a couple flashback panels at the beginning of the comic. It's legit. They just redo this scene again in the next comic, right? Except I just noticed while editing that there's a continuity error between these 2 pages. If you look closely, Amy is in 2 different places in these panels. Like, I'm gonna have the 2 images of the 2 different panels swapping back and forward so you could see, but it's this is not like a major blunder. It's just really funny, and I noticed it. It's like when you're watching a movie and like they cut from one shot and then back to another shot that you were just looking at, and something like on screen disappears, and it's so blatantly obvious. It's just funny. Again, not a major blunder, but it was funny enough when I noticed that I had to mention it. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to the normal video. Bye. My God, this was like the most cliched thing they could have done for this arc. But basically, it's like after the metal virus is gone, everyone, like, Silver lands, and he's like, oh my God, Sonic's dead. The Chaos Topaz blew up, and he pushed me out of the way, or some bullshit like that. Anyway, so they have this like cliche ending where like Silver's like, oh my God, he's dead. Everyone's like, oh no, he's dead. But they do this in the next issue. The next issue is like just that. It's just it's just everybody like going, "Oh my God, Sonic's dead," essentially, and that's all there is to it, kind of. And that's because they leave it like the next arc, which takes place after this. It starts off with Sonic in Blaze's world, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I haven't I have not reread this issue yet. I just remember that distinctly what it is Sonic wakes up in Blaze's world, and he's got amnesia, and doesn't matter because he's over that amnesia in one issue. It's the dumbest, most pointless thing ever. Like him having amnesia was like like very inconsequential to the overall plot for those next couple issues. They just wanted to put Sonic in Blaze's world for 5 seconds to fight some kind of conflict. I can't remember what the conflict was. I think it's again another like just inconsequential conflict, but overall, the Zombot arc is, again, as I've said multiple times about IDW, it's mediocre and it's a missed opportunity. I will hammer this in: missed opportunity. I think with the Zombot arc in particular, they did not hit the zombie vibe hard enough. It felt more like a mix between they were trying to keep the usual Sonic flavor, but also they wanted trauma bait. I'm gonna call it. I'm not really even the one who coined this. Somebody else said it best, but they basically were like they basically wanted meaningless trauma bait, and I agree with them because thank you, Discord. There was no like lasting consequences to this arc. Sonic fixes everything. Everybody gets cured. There's no ramification where they like it turns out they couldn't fix everybody. Maybe they had to like quarantine an entire area off and be like, this is the Zombot zone, don't enter. If you do enter, you're at risk. You're at your own risk, right? Or something like that. No, they just were like, that's it. Like, Zombot fires can just be pulled off of everybody because supersonic. So there's no like lasting ramifications to this arc, and the stakes were never real. Maybe I said this in an earlier video or maybe a previous version of this video, but when a character got infected, there was no there was just you knew it wasn't gonna last. Like Vector getting infected, Charmy getting infected, like yeah, I know they're gonna get cured. You know why? Because they're Sega main cast characters, and there's no way in hell Sega would just let IDW kill those characters off in these comics, especially since these comics are allegedly canon. They allegedly take place between Sonic Forces and Sonic Frontiers. Allegedly. I'm putting a big allegedly here because, to be honest, Sega does not give two fucks what the West wants to do with the franchise. Sega Japan has never cared about what the West wants out of the franchise. They've only cared about what Sega Japan wants out of the franchise, and they constantly make every kind of effort to remove any Western influence essentially out of it. So I think the whole IDW is canon is dubious at best. I think that they very purposely make IDW vaguely canon as possible to essentially just kind of make it so they can divorce themselves from it when it becomes convenient. But to roll it back now to what I was talking about before, I think that there was no stakes to these issues, and I think that like a lot of people will say, well, that's because of Sega mandates and blah 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 blah, and it's like I think that that's the wrong attitude to have about it. I think that these mandates are almost a evil necessity, so to speak. I think that they are important for making sure that another Ken Penders doesn't happen again. And I, to a certain degree, understand Sega's perspective on that. Although I think it's disappointing that they uh, made such a blanket thing out of it. That being said, though, I think the mandates can be worked around. And I think that's like this dual nature of the side characters that the we'll call them the comic side characters, because that's all they are. They're side characters that in all reality have no weight outside of the comics themselves. Because when a mainline game comes along, guess what? Nobody gives two shits about these characters. When you're playing the mainline characters, it's like mainline games, the mainline characters are just on the plot itself. They're not talking about, oh man, I wonder what Tangle and Whisper are doing. I think that maybe I should be wrong. I'll scratch that last part, because I do think there actually is like a line of dialogue Sonic has in like Sonic Frontiers about Tangle and maybe Whisper, but it's still like just a side dialogue. It's not like the characters show up or anything, right? So these characters don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And you could use them, though, utilize them to add agency to the plot. Like, something that could and should be considered is that you could kill some of these side characters off sometimes. Not all the time. Don't do it all the time. They shouldn't become red shirts, but consider this. Imagine like the Zombot arc. What if Sonic couldn't cure everybody with the Zombot virus? For some reason, for one reason or another, he couldn't cure everybody. So what if, like, they had to build a quarantine zone to put the infected in? And it's just a no-go zone, basically. And what if, like, they had a character, like they introduced a side character at the beginning of the series, and Sonic in the game become endeared to this character. He becomes basically like a staple. And then that character, turns out he's one of the infected that had to go to the quarantine zone, and they can't save their friend. Imagine a scenario like that, where you now have a character that the audience and characters have become endeared to, and now it's essentially, they're not actually dead, but they are technically dead. They can't be brought back. So, it's like you do something like that. An arc that's going to have, I'll talk about later when I get to it, and I'll probably reiterate the story later. But another like version of this is with Mimic. Mimic the Octopus, his special ability is he can turn into other people and stuff like that. And he does this, and he joins the Diamond Cutters or the Restoration in a future arc, and he's like an infiltrator. And it's really cool, except I think that IDW wasted it by making it so we could see Mimic's perspective during all of this. I think that the mention of Mimic being there should have never been brought up. I think Mimic should have been a quiet thing in the background that is not obvious or clear. And it's like you introduce this new side character, and once again, everybody becomes endeared to them, and they start to like this character. You put them in like for like 2 arcs, like good solid arcs, and they actually contribute to the gang and stuff like that in meaningful ways. And then you pull the rug out from everybody, and it turns out this character they've all become endeared to has been never existed. This character was a fucking lie. He was actually Mimic the whole time. That would have been so much better than what we got. Because what we got was, oh, Mimic's there. What's Mimic going to do? Spying stuff. Is he going to kill anybody? Probably not. Probably not. Go back to my fictional version of how this arc could have went, and seriously think about this for a minute. Yeah, maybe have two characters that you introduce, and the audience becomes endeared to, and one of them secretly Mimic, and he kills the other character, and they're like best friends, right? Like make it so these two are like best buddies throughout these arcs that they've been introduced in. And then the betrayal happens, and it makes it hurt that much fucking more. Imagine you became best friends with this guy, and he fucking stabs you in the back because he himself was a lie this whole time, right? And they act like, and that's working around the mandates. You're not killing a main cast character, but you are adding agency to the plot because you're establishing that side characters could die. And on top of that, this can affect mainline characters. They can have emotional attachment to these characters. And it just adds agency to it. Even if it's a minute amount of agency, it still adds the idea that characters are in danger. We've seen that they do it with the villains. They've killed Starline and they've killed Mimic. I'm going to put a big allegedly on both of them because they were technically off-screen kills, and while someone will say, yeah, because it's a kid's comic, blah, 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 I agree with that, but it still leaves the door open, even if it's not intentional. Like, I think at the end, like, I'll take, for instance, Halloween, for example. How many times did they kill Michael Myers, and the movie studios are like, we need another Halloween movie, just bring him back. And that's on screen. A character killed off screen is so much easier to make up some kind of excuse as to why they survived. Star Wars did this with Darth Maul. He gets decapitated on screen and falls down a bottomless pit, and they still make a piece of lore that turns out Darth Maul lived. So, and it's because he didn't die on screen, so it couldn't have been real. Palpatine, he gets thrown down a bottomless pit. He didn't die on screen. You can bring him back anytime you want. If a character does not die on screen, you can bring them back. So, Mimic and Starline died, but there's, that chance they can come back. But they died, and that means that they're able to kill characters. So why not kill side characters? Sometimes, not all the time. I don't think, again, don't redshirt them. I don't think they should be red shirts. I don't think Tangle and Whisper, for instance, should have been like immediately in danger of death. I think that keeping the two characters around is fun, and it's good for, again, you have a team that the audience can count on. But maybe like way in the future, and I'm talking way in the future, maybe you kill off one of them, right? They did it like in Archie with Antoine. Antoine, he gets before the reboot happens. Him and Bonnie get married after she gets her robot disease fixed, and Eggman suicide bombs Antoine with Metal Sonic, and they don't kill him, but they put him in a coma. And we don't know if he comes out of that coma or not, because the reboot happened after that, unfortunately. So, and then on top of that, just before the reboot happened, they kill Sally off, which I think that was more shock factor, but, potato. But still, though, they took characters that we cared about. Actually, before the reboot even happened, they turned Sally into Metal Sally. And while it was established in the lore, you can bring a character back from being roboticized, they still took a character that had been there for the beginning and then turned her into an enemy. And it all fits together and adds agency to the plot that your characters are not guaranteed to always be there. So, adding agency to the plot by killing off side characters and even waiting a while to kill them off is a great way to work around these mandates, because it doesn't fuck with what Sega wants out of Sonic. You're not giving Sonic a romantic love interest. You're not giving, you're not making him cry on screen or whatever. You're killing his friends, and not the actual friends that matter, not like main cast friends, but you're killing off like side characters that the audience becomes endeared to, and now there's agency. I know I keep repeating myself and going in circles, but I can't drive it home enough how you can work around these mandates and make things interesting. And that's what they're not doing at IDW. They're just sitting on their hands with this plot, and it's mediocre as hell. And then another thing I want to touch about real quick on the Zombot arc, I know real quick is not really real quick with me, but hear me out, is the art direction of this arc is extremely it's bland. It could be far more interesting. I'll put this one shot up on screen that sums up what the art in the Zombot arc should have looked like the whole way through, and it's this awesome shot of Zombot versions of characters we know walking in a swamp, and it's the hardest image in this entire arc. It exemplifies what this arc should have been, and that's sheer, unbridled horror. Imagine your friends and families getting ripped apart by zombies. That's every zombie thing ever. And they don't really nail that with this arc because it's too... the art style is too sterile. It's good art. It looks great. It's competently drawn. The colors are amazing, but it's sterile as fuck. Every frame of these issues should have looked like this particular frame. Every frame should have exemplified horror. And I'm not talking about hardcore guts and gore and stuff like that, but just adding like detail to the some of the frames, like close-ups and stuff like that, and playing with the lighting and all that is so magical in the way you can take something and turn it into something else. You could put Sonic in a horror situation, and it's not, and again, like someone might say, okay, it's too hardcore for a Sonic. Fucking Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, is, in my opinion, a horror game to a certain extent. It is horror in the Sonic universe. It's literally this like dark, depressing fucking alien invasion. All the colors are dark and bleak. Everything is like washed out, or these dark gross purples and stuff like that. There's like barely any levels you play where there's like actual sunshine. Most of the time it's very dark, and it adds a level of horror to the game. Maybe that's intentional, maybe it's not intentional, I don't know. All I know is that it shows you can take Sonic and put him into a horror setting. I know Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, is not like well looked upon as like a good Sonic game by the general overall Sonic community, but I think that the game does nail, at the very least, a oppressive atmosphere, and that fits the tone of what they were going with Shadow the Hedgehog story, and you can nail that in Sonic. I think even like Shadow Generations does a pretty good job at this with some of the levels. I know Radical Highway is a little bit of a meme because I kept going back to it in Shadow Generations, but Radical Highway is kind of like feels like a horror setting, because you're like, it's not just like the Radical Highway we remember, where it's just like San Francisco at night, but on like a bridge or whatever. It's got this like, the skies are fucking red and the buildings are warping and twisting around you. It really nails like a horror atmosphere to a certain extent. I don't think maybe that's not the intent they were going for, but it's kind of like what I walked away with it from. Is it kind of, again, it just embodies this like spooky, creepy feeling, and you can translate some of this stuff into the comics with better art direction and better like panel framing. You could have a couple shots where Zombots have extra detail, like they're the metal virus is like depicted as basically being like liquid metal on the flesh of these guys. Like you could totally go for this thing where they're walking around and it just looks like their fucking flesh is melting off their bodies. You can totally, and I'm not like, I don't mean that literally, just tons of drips everywhere, and I mean like extra drips, not just like the silhouette drips, like on the face, on the fur, on on whatever appendages they have, just extra detail, not everywhere, but in certain frames. And then you nail just these grotesque scenes of grotesque but family-friendly scenes of Zombots attacking like a village or a town, overwhelming like just a random citizen. And any of this could have went in their favor of nailing like a horror vibe with this arc. I think even the covers are, while again they're good, they're competently drawn, but they could have gone further with them. I think what would have been rad as hell is if they would have made like, maybe for the alternate variant arts, right? Maybe not your cover A's, but maybe your B covers and your C covers. They could have totally did a thing where each cover was a homage to a zombie movie. Like imagine a Return of the Living Dead or Night of the Living Dead, a Walking Dead version where you have like a character walking into one of the cities and it's a reference to The Walking Dead. Just any of those types of like references, visual references that people would recognize from other zombie media would go a long way in betraying like the core ideas of this is a zombie arc. And you can do it again without going into the full gore. You can play around with the drips of the metal. They had a scene where I can't remember who it was, but they hit a Zombot and they like got disfigured for a little bit, and then it just refixes itself. You can disfigure the Zombots a little bit and get away with it. It doesn't have to be grody. It just has to be gross. And I think like that's all I really could say about all of this. I gotta come back now to the beginning. I think the Zombot arc, it's mediocre. It doesn't hit the potential that it could have been. Would it, like, if you go down the route I'm suggesting, would it be a certified 100% this would be golden? Maybe not, but people would definitely walk away from it saying it's interesting at the very least. And interesting can be good. Interesting can get people's eyes on the books. And if it's good, and more people get their eyes on the books. Archie Sonic, and I keep referencing Archie Sonic, and I want to be vividly clear, I don't think Archie Sonic is the creme de la creme, most perfectest comic book series ever. It's not. It is a mixed bag of bullshit, but that mixed bag of bullshit comes with highs and lows, and when the highs are highs, they're high as fuck, and the lows, yeah, they're low as fuck, but at least your eyes are on the page. At least you remember when you walk away from it. I read this Zombot arc a while ago, and I forgot most of it because of how boring and bland it is. And because, again, it has no lasting long-term effects. The only thing that comes out of this afterwards is basically like Starline no longer works with Eggman, but that was bound to happen anyways. Like, there was no way in hell they're going to keep Starline and Eggman working together forever. They already split up in Archie, Snively and Eggman. Why would they keep Starline and Eggman together. Eggman is the I work alone kind of guy. He never just keeps working with somebody. But this arc, again, it's boring, it's bland, it's got no lasting effects, and it's a missed opportunity. I think that sums up my opinion about this specific arc. But it also applies to Arch, or no, excuse me, IDW as a whole to a certain extent. I'll talk about more arcs here coming soon. I might go backwards to the first arc because I do think there might be a couple of things I can talk about in that arc. I'll probably go backwards before I go forwards. We'll see how I feel after I'm done editing this video. And that's all I have to say. I'm gonna end the video here. I want everybody to have a wonderful day. Take care.